Alright, so this is Christopher Moonlight from Moonlight Art Magazine. Once again, I am at the San Diego Comic Book Convention for 2012. And once again, I am with Sal Abbinanti of AlexRossArt.com. Sal, how you doing?
Right, good. So, third year or second year? At least the third year.
I think we're fourth or fifth, actually.
Has it been?
Yeah.
You got a better memory than I do, man. I'm getting old.
Well, I've got videotapes to back me up, so.
I think there's a lot of bong resin left over from high school in my head.
Alright, so this year's theme for the interviews is Hollywood and comic books. There's been a lot of talk from the comic book people that Comic-Con has gotten too big and Hollywood has pushed people out. People can't get into the panels, people can't get tickets, but on the other hand, hotels are outrageous.
Yeah, it's everything.
But on the other hand, Hollywood has brought a limelight on the comic books. We had the Avengers movie, we had Spider-Man this year as well. Batman's coming out. People now know who Thor is, people now know who Captain America is beyond just, you know, that guy.
If we can get them to know who Jack Kirby is next, then we're making some progress.
Yeah, well, we're at the Alex Ross booth, so Alex has actually had some involvement. He did the opening credit sequence for Spider-Man 2. I mean, that was a while ago, but and it's for M. Night Shyamalan. There was also Unbreakable. Yeah. And did he have any involvement in the Superman movie?
He had no, not really. I mean, it was. He said it was inspired a little bit by some of Alex's work from Peace on Earth. He got he mentioned it in a panel. Bryan Singer mentioned it in a panel the year previous to the release of Superman. He said he was inspired a lot by Alex in his movie adaptations.
So, I mean, how about you here? Alex Ross Art has been a booth at conventions for at least 12 years.
Yeah. This is my 17th Comic-Con, but my 11th with Alex.
So, I mean, you've seen a lot of big changes.
Yeah. It was very small when we started.
What stands out most? I mean, Hollywood always had a small presence here. I mean, Lucas, I believe, showed The Empire Strikes Back clips at a Comic-Con in the early 80s, but I mean, for you, what are the pros and cons? What do you see that bugs you, and what do you see that you think is really good?
I think, the Comic-Con, inevitably you're going to always have a rub when you have this many people and this much going on. And there's going to always be a counterculture element that's going to say, look, it's our nature as artists to think that, the bigger establishment is trying to push us to the side. But I don't agree with the fact that, we hear about how there's less and less comics here, because I think you can't walk 10 feet in any direction and not see comics. Now, is it the forefront? It's in the name, but no, I agree with the argument that, I wish there was more comics, but yet I think there's a lot of comics here, and I don't think it gets enough credit that there are as many comics here. Now, the bigger argument, I think, for people within the industry is Artist Alley is smaller than a lot of shows. Like the New York Comic-Con, Artist Alley is enormous. C2E2 in Chicago. Shows I do overseas, Artist Alley is a pavilion in itself. Are they pushed to the side? Yeah, I think somewhat, but that would be my biggest slant against it. But there's also a great deal of positives here. That if this show isn't your cup of tea, there are so many smaller shows now. Ape is an independent show that Comic-Con sponsors. Mocha in New York. You've got and not to mention there's literally a Comic-Con every week now.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a lot of smaller shows, but is it Granddad's old Comic-Con? No. When I started doing it was maybe a quarter of the hall of what it is now. And then I want to say 7 years ago, it became a multimedia show. They opened it up to gaming and licensing, and the comic movies really weren't at the forefront yet to where they're the focus. But it was also the cable networks jumped in, the movie people jumped in. There are 18 to 35 audiences here. The social media world changed it because of the Twittering and YouTube and Facebook, because of how much of that is going on here. That was a combination of a lot of things that really turned this into the 800-pound gorilla that it is.
Now, so the comic...
eBay, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
eBay changed things tremendously because of the show exclusives. Show exclusives used to be a novelty item that you could only get here. eBay changed that to where now you had a lot of people that were pre-selling the items on eBay and showing up here to be the first guy in line to reap a profit off of show exclusives.
Yeah, I have a few people that just have contacted me. You're going to Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Can you pick me up this?
Oh yeah.
While
They're
you're there?
selling them before they even got them. They pre-sell them on eBay.
Wow.
And that changed tremendously.
Yeah. So about 7 years ago, this started to transform. Now I remember. I don't know if you remember this, but one year, Leonardo DiCaprio landed on the roof in a helicopter.
Sure.
And in my mind, and I could be wrong about this, but it almost seems like that was the trigger. Like maybe the Hollywood guys said, why is our big star going to this thing? And I remember that was kind of like the word going around.
I think when it started to get a little bit of coverage, a lot of cable coverage, on certain stations, as it turned into Sundance. It became almost like a cliquey thing to be into. And then Hollywood, of course, is going to jump on to wherever they think they can attack that audience, that 18 to 35 audience, that core group where the money's at. And their marketing people told me, you want a young audience, you got to go to Comic-Con. And I think inevitably the same thing is New York Comic-Con in the fall has already fallen victim to becoming the East Coast shitstorm, so to speak. Because you've got a lot of bigger companies now that are starting to pull out of Comic-Con because they have a lot of cable networks, a lot of movies, a lot of TV from whether it's internet-based or HD-based or cable-based, have fall agendas that they want to push, they want to pin. And they're worried they're getting lost in the shuffle here where people are forgetting about them and their promo is eroding by the fall. Well, that's where New York Comic-Con comes in the fall. And New York is the media whore of America. So that's why New York Comic-Con went from a 50, 60,000 attendee show to this year where it was well over 100,000. And you noticed Ubisoft and the big games there, but not only that, Fox was there, and everybody, AMC, and anybody who's pimping their fall agendas is much quicker now to say, look, we're getting more bang for our buck here versus Comic-Con because we're getting lost in this blizzard of, pimpage.
Now it's interesting because Comic-Con's become the limelight, and you're right. Smaller comic book conventions have almost benefited from it because more people who want to see more comics go to them now instead of getting lost in here.
Sure.
But as a result, also I think that with the internet, like you said, like the social media,
sure.
I think a lot of the comic book people are now learning to globalize more.
Yeah.
Where it's almost reactionary, where they feel like they don't need to be here anymore because everything's kind of diffused into this ethereal internet.
Yeah, it still has the hip factor to it. It's a cycle. It'll change. It's like everything, the balloon will burst.
Do you ever see Comic-Con not being this big, maybe dying down a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I think it'll level off. I think that as long as it's going to continue to get that frenzy type of coverage of it being a must-do thing, more people here they can't get in, they want to get in. Here comes Studio 54, where once you get in, you realize it's the same Coke and the same drinks and the same, spandex it is at another club, but it's Studio 54 and they won't let me in. So I think, like anything in life, I think it's the latest circus, but it'll roll over and be something else.
Trying to think of anything else.
I think it's good though. Inevitably, I think it's a great thing for comics. I think it's a celebration, is the way I look at it. It's unlike anything else. And if you would have told me 10 years ago that we'd have Iron Man, Avengers, X-Men, and Batman movies with this degree of regularity, I never would have believed it. Did you ever believe you were going to see an Avengers movie or Thor made into the Destroyer? These are characters that were like.
I remember seeing the X-Men movie and then coming to Comic-Con, and everyone at Comic-Con was thrilled because it was actually fairly decent movies.
Right.
Not even a great movie.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, that was
Yeah.
actually just decent, and we're excited about
Never
that.
thought it would happen. I never thought it would happen. And you know, I try to look at it as a celebration. It used to be a lot of fun and a little bit of work, and now it's become a lot of work and a little bit of fun because you're so busy, and I have to, you know, there's so much work and there's so much to do, and it's hard to have as much fun as you used to because it's a shitstorm. There's this many people.
I was actually thinking of making a pre-Comic Con cross-training video so
Yeah.
people could get in shape to survive it.
I get double padding at the booth, but by the second hour of the first day, I'm already bow-legged. So I get after the show, I have what's called con flu, where it takes me a week to get over Comic Con.
Yeah, I brought some airborne down.
The sleep and the sleep deprivation and the eating crappy food and your hoarse from talking to everybody and just breathing in recycled air from 150,000 people and taking 2 hours to cross the street. But again, if it's not everyone's cup of tea, I understand. I like the idea that if there's a lot of new people here and they've never heard of Iron Man, they've never heard of the Lone Ranger or half of the Top Cow characters or Aspen characters, that hopefully we're introducing them to a new influx of viewers and comic book readers, because I'm not worried about Comic-Con. I'm worried about comics. I'm worried about comics 10 years from now. Who's going to read comics? When I do shows overseas, I see a lot of kids predominantly at shows. I see school buses pulling up on Sunday where they have kids day.
Hey, that's really cool.
I'd like to see more of that at American shows. And to the credit, I've seen it at the New York show, where they have kids free day on Sundays and things like that. Because, comics are fine now, but I'm just worried about 10 years from now. With the digital, with the iPads, and the ever, evolving what's happening to the print media. I mean, print is, I don't want to be the death rattle, but the last 3 printers that I've used have gone under. They're just not, the internet changed it. There's no one prints catalogs, and then now everyone's going towards iPads, and I don't know if our kids are going to read anything on paper.
Well, I think there's certainly a lot more people reading comics now than ever before, and I'm kind of hoping that that will.
I think a lot of it too has to do with the economy. I think it's comic books are kind of like it's the fast food mentality of it's always been the grassroots working man's type of medium. And I think the economy, when it took a hit, comics took a hit, but I see them bouncing back. I see people still spending money on comics. The Avengers grossed $1 billion and all that, and that's nice. But inevitably, I think that audience, so that tells me that audience is out there that likes the subject matter. So I think, but I'm also going to be critical of comics of the last 10 years. There's been a lot of regurgitated storylines and a lot of stuff that I think we can do a better job with.
Yeah.
Really, I think there's a lot of room for improvement with comic books.
Well, that's Alan Moore's complaint before Watchmen. People say, oh, he's a cranky old man, but at the same time, to me,
I think he's right.
He's just saying, why? Yeah, why?
I think he's right. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. There's a lot of room for this business to evolve, and I think we went through a major part of that in the 90s, and then it got killed off by a lot of speculation buying. People were buying comics based on whether they were going to resell them and bag them and board them, and then I think it has to be inevitably story driven by artists and writers.
Yeah, I think Brian Bendis not too long ago said too, if you're a writer or a creator, don't try and create what you think is going to sell, because by the time you get your shit together and get it out there, the audience will have moved on to something else.
Absolutely.
So, and you look at all the things that people kind of revere as classics, they were all things that came out of left field.
I agree.
All right, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it.
Okay, everybody. Thank you very much.
You mind if I'm just going to